We are group number 6 with Tess of the Dumbervilles. Let's begin with a summary of this amazing story.
Hello, we have divided this book in four parts, and I'm going to start with the first one. This, the unfortunate story of Tess begins when her father finds the Reverend Trinham on the road, and he tells Mr. Duberfield that his family is descended from a distinguished family of the Norman aristocracy known as the Duberville. By the other side, the story tells that Tess and her friends are dancing with a gentleman named Angel Clare, who will be an important person in the life of our protagonist in this story. When Tess arrives home, her mother surprises her by telling what her father has discovered and suggests to go to talk with the Duberville to claim kinship. But Tess refused to comply what her mother proposed. Tess's father is an alcoholic man who never takes seriously his job, and for that reason, many times she has to do her father's job. One of those days when Mr. Duberfield is completely drunk, Tess is forced to go to deliver some products far from home. But she has an accident, or she suffers an accident in which died the only horse they have for working and earning some money. Since they do not have enough money to survive for a long time, Tess makes the decision to talk with the Duberville to claim kinship. When Tess comes to the Duberville house, she meets Alec Duberville, who is obsessed with her since the first time he knows her. While they talk out of the house, Tess explains Alec why she is there. Then he invites her to come home and offers her some strawberries to eat while they continue talking about the relationship they share. Alec promised to help Tess with her problems, and a few days later, she is called to work on the Duberfield family farm. Working in that place, Tess meets Alec's mother, who is a strong-willed lady who loves farm animals more than her son. She explained Tess that an important requirement for working there is to know how to whistle, since it maintains the animals calm. So Alec teaches her how to do it. But we can say that he does it just because he always is looking for an opportunity to be close to her and win her body one day. Time goes on, and one day Tess is invited to a dance by some girls where they spend some hours dancing and talking with each other. When everyone is returning home, on the way Tess has a small discussion with a girl, but she is saved by Alec, who takes her home on his horse. Alec is supposed to take Tess home. However, he follows another path into the woods when she falls asleep from exhaustion. There, he sexually abused of Tess, and the only one who see his crime are the trees in the forest and his horse. After the unfair event that Tess suffers, she returns her home with heart full of resentment, as she is not the same sweet and smiling girl that once she was. With the time, we can see that Tess gets pregnant with Alec, and a few months later, a child who is named Sorrow was born.
Then we have a Tess with her baby. The baby is crying all the time, and Tess didn't know how to do with him. She didn't go to the church in that moment in order to bath him, so she did it by herself, and she put him the name of Sorrow. At the next morning, her baby was dead. She went to the church in order to have a Christian burial, but the father told her that he wasn't baptized at the moment, and what he did last day wasn't taken into account. So she had to put her son outside of the church. The burial, it was not a Christian burial. She leaves her parents' house, and her mother told her that she needed to forget and what she had lived, and she had to begin again. In that moment is when she arrived to a farm. In that farm, they reside a new job with a new life. Now she was a milk maker. In that farm, there were another 3 milk makers that are Maria, Izzy, and Retty. They were in love of a handsome man that was there. The handsome man is Angel. And then after some days, Angel noticed that he is in love of Tess, but Tess didn't want to recognize that she is in love with him. When he noticed that she wanted Tess as a wife, she went with her fathers in order to tell them, but their father has another plans for Angel. Their parents wanted that Angel get married with Mercy. Mercy was her friends from childhood, but Angel was in love of Tess, and then she returned to the farm in order to beg Tess to marry with him, but she is against. Another point to mention in that meeting is that in that place, a leg is over there. So Angel make a leg and know who is he. This is important because Tess didn't know about it. After some days, he spent many days begging Tess in order to get married, and then she's like she remembered what her mother said, that she need to start again. She need to forget the past, and she accept to be with him. And then they go to a beautiful dress in order to get married, and they accept each other. But he decided to write a letter for him, in which he tells him the truth about her past. And she gave him the letter about what he had lived. And the next morning, he comes to her, and she thinks that he read the letter and he accepts her as she is. But the day in which they are going to be married, she noticed that the letter is still closed. So Angel never read the letter. In that moment, he has the dress to be married in one side and the letter with the truth in another hand. And she decided to burn the letter and be happy with Angel.
Hello everyone, let's continue with the story of Tess of the Durabils. The story continues when Tess and Angel got married. The marriage went off without a hitch. After the two happily got married, they rode off in their carriage to their old ancestral mansion. When they were at the mansion, Tess received a wedding gift from Angel's parents. They were old youths of the family. After that, the luggage arrived along with awful news. After the departure, Reti tried to drown herself. She hurt herself as Tess had promised her that she would not get married with Angel, as Reti loved him too. Actually, Izzy, Miriam, and Reti loved Angel. That's why they were disappointed because Tess got married with him. Angel saw Tess with a wistful smile, and in order to calm her down and change the conversation, he confessed her what he had done years ago before getting married. He had an encounter with a woman and affair. Therefore, he begged her forgiveness. Tess was happy to forgive him as she had something to confess him to. She told her what Alec had done to her years ago and that he had abused her. Therefore, she got pregnant, but the child had died. Tess got surprised that Angel could not forgive her because of her past. He told her that she had sinned and deceived him. He assumed that Tess' background was clean because it was important for his family. This made Angel even miserable, knowing that Tess' background was not clean. Consequently, Tess returned to her house, and when her mother saw her without her husband, she was enraged as Tess had confessed Angel everything that Alec Duberville had done to her. Besides, Angel returned to his parents' house, who were waiting for Tess to meet her, but he told them that he was going on a trip to Brazil and that she could not accompany him. On his way to Brazil, he came across with Izzy Wood, and he told her that he had separated from Tess and asked her if he had asked her to get married with her instead of Tess, would she have said yes? She enthusiastically said yes. Energized by her earnestness, he asked her if she was willing to go with him to Brazil, although they were committing an immoral act. But she didn't care and agreed. After that, Angel realized that it was not right and that he still loved Tess, but he could not forgive her because of her past. So he continued on his way to Brazil. Meanwhile, Tess left home to look for a job because she didn't have money. She was desperate to find a job, but it was hard since it was winter. But later she found a job on a farm where she came across with Izzy and Miriam. It had already been a year since Angel left and she didn't know anything about him. So she decided to contact his parents, but she was sorry she had gone because when she was there, she heard that Angel's brothers made fun of her because she was milkmaid. Near that place, while she was walking, she came across with Alec Duberville. And when she saw him, she fled. But he chased after her and told her that he was sorry for everything he had done to her. Tess confessed him that they had a child, but the child had died, and his name was Sorrow. After that, when she was working, Alec visited her and told her that he wanted to get married with her, and that he could help her and her family to get out of the misery in which they found. Alec didn't know why she suffered in the job when he could provide happily to her and her family. But of course, Tess didn't accept it. After Alec's visit, she wrote Angel telling him that he needed to come back before something cruel happened. But Angel was sick in Brazil, and that's why he could not come back with Tess.
Tess says goodbye to her friends. After that, she goes to see her father, who is sick of the heart. But pitifully later, her father dies, and Alec, who had previously harmed Tess, appears again to offer to support her family, but Tess flatly refuses. And after that, after the death of her father, the family has nowhere to live, and they spend the night in a cemetery. Alec continues to insist that she marry him to change the situation of her family. And Angel, who was Tess' husband, is very ill, and his family decide to tell him about Tess' appearance and about a letter that Tess' friends sent to warn him that Alec was stalking Tess. And Angel, after reading the letter, decides to go in search of Tess. Then he says goodbye to his parents. He rides his horse in search of Tess. Upon finding Tess' family, her mother denies her whereabouts. Tess' sisters runs to find Angel to tell him where she is. And after that, Angel finds Tess and explains that he was sick, but Tess felt very offended and did not want to see him anymore. He explains again that he has been sick, and she confesses that at the end she accepted Alec's proposal and became his slave. Then Angel leaves, and Tess argues with Alec. And she leaves leaving him lying on the ground already, because he was already dead. She runs and goes in search of Angel, and upon finding Angel, she tells him that she has killed Alec, and they decide to go together to spend the night in another place. So they decide to break into a house, but the mistress of the house finds them, and they decide to flee from there again to spend the night in another place because the mistress of the house has found them. When they decide to flee, Tess lies down on a large rock to have rest, and she tells Angel that everything is over and that he may marry her younger sister. Shortly after the police arrive for Tess, then she says goodbye to Angel and they take her to prison. Angel sees the jail where Tess is from afar, and Tess' younger sister tries to consolate him because he was sad about seeing her after the jail.
It's time to talk about the characters, and I'm going to cover two of them. Though they are John Duberfield or Mr. John Duberfield and the Reverend Parson Trimham. Well, the first one is John Duberfield. He was an alcoholic man who worked buying and selling some products to make some profits, and in that way he support his family. He was Joanne's husband and Tess's father. And although he had other children, the story tells that his favorite daughter was Tess. Well, in addition of being an alcoholic man, he also had a heart condition, and it provoked his death when the Duberfield family was living difficult situations. Now it is time to talk about Parson Trimham. Well, Parson Trimham was the town's reverend in the story, and he was he was a relevant piece because he was the man who discovered and told to Mr. Duberfield the origins about his family dynasty. Trimham was a religious man who was strictly adhered to the laws dictated by the church in those days. And we can see that when he refuses to help or to give dignified funeral to Tess's son.
A little bit about Alec Duberville. He was not a Duberville in a real way, because his father Simon stole the name from a rich family in order to have a good name. This was a handsome man that is evil and wants to manipulate everything around him in order to get what he wants. He wants the love of Tess, but she rejects him. So she tried to have her love with strong, but he can escape from his hands. A little bit about Angel Clare. Angel Clare is a handsome man who is in love with Tess along of the story. He is intelligent and he is the son of a father in a church, and his two brothers works in the church too. He is in a farm because he tried to escape from the city and all his responsibility over there. His family wants that she get married with a sword or a rich woman, but he is in love with Tess.
Let's continue with the analysis of the characters and the representation in the society and in the book. Let's start with Tess Duberfield. She is the novel's protagonist, and she is a beautiful, loyal young woman living with her impoverished family. She has a keen of responsibility and is committed to doing the best she can for her family. Although her inexperience and lack of parenting leave her extremely vulnerable. Um, Her life gets complicated when her father discovers a link to the noble line of the Dubervilles. Therefore, she is sent to work at the Dubervilles mansion. Unfortunately, her ideas cannot prevent her from sliding further and further into misfortune. After she becomes pregnant by Alec Duberville. The terrible irony is that Tess and her family are not really related to this branch of the Dubervilles at all. Tess also represents a fallen humanity in a religious sense, as the novel frequent biblical allusions remind us. Besides, Tess is the myth of human who suffers for crimes that are not her own and lives life more degraded than she deserves. That's why, in the end, she kills Alec Duberville because, according to her, he was the only one who brought misfortunes to her life. Let's continue with Joan Duberville. She is Tess' mother. John Duberville has a strong sense of property and very particular hopes for Tess' life. She is continually disappointed by the way in which her daughter's life actually proceeds. Tess' ineffectual mother, John Duberville, frequently protects her own interests, not her children. She doesn't warn Tess of Alex's intentions in the hope she will get married with him and thus help her family. Lacking Tess' moral code, she recommends Tess not to tell Angel about her past. John is forgiven as helpful as she can be and saddened by the events in Tess' life. In short, John is concerned about the future not only of her daughter but also about her own future. We can see that this is really common in society where parents are the responsible for saying what is the best not for the children but for the reputation and well-being of the family.
If we talk about sorrow and Elisa Luisa, I can tell you that sorrow is Hardy's representation of sin. Sorrow was Tess' baby from Alec. Sorrow is also an example of pure nature because he was the product of a sin. Actually, a double sin because carnal encounters were seen as pagan in that time. Also pure nature because it doesn't matter if it is a sin. Ovum will always fecundate sperm. Sometimes couples spend a lot of money to bring a child to this world, but they are not able to manage it. And if we also hear sorrow comes without being planned, sorrow is a proper name because that was what Tess felt after Alex's sin. Now if we talk about Elisa, she was also known in the book as Lisa Lou. Elisa was Tess' younger sister and could be said that Elisa always wanted the best to her sister Tess, as we always want the same for our sisters and brothers. In most cases, because there are cases in which brothers don't love each other. Tess describes Elisa to Angel as all the best of me without the bad of me. Also, Tess asks him to marry her once she is dead.
It's time to talk about our personal opinions. And in my own standpoint, I think that Thomas Hardy's purpose is to show the readers how was the people's life in those years through this heartbreaking story. And I think that it is the book's message since it highlights the importance that some men, or the importance that men gave to the women purity. And we can see that when Angel separates from Tess, when he discovers or when he knows about her unfortunate secret. Also, I can say that, in fact, I think that my theory is reinforced when Tess kills Alec, since he could never tell anyone what he did with her in that forest if he died. Also, she could finally live happily with Angel. Now we move to things that we didn't like or that I like. Well, I want to say that I loved this book, as it is not only a simple romantic story from the Victorian era, but also it is full of suspense, drama, and suffering. Well, a thing that I didn't like of this story is the final destiny of or the main characters. However, I can say that I understand why, because I already said what, in my own opinion, what is the main purpose or the purpose of this story.
In my personal opinion, I want to take into account a phrase that I could read, or what Tess' mother says, that she twice she tells her after to go to the farm, and in the letter she tells her that we have to forget and start again. And I think that is a beautiful part in this book, because every person can change and have a new beginning in order to be better and have a better life. Also, a person can improve his or her behavior, and there is a part in which Tess says that the past will always find us. So we can try to forget, we could try to escape, but what we have made will always come to the present. If we did something bad, someone will remember that action, and if we did something good in a future, someone could can congratulate us for us in the life by itself. So I think that is a very true point that we have in our daily life. We can see it, and we can know that maybe we could try to escape as a Tess did, but our action or our life will always find us.
Let's continue with my personal opinion, and I'm going to take the social criticism of the book. The novel's largest critic is aimed at the sexual double standard with all the extremities and misfortunes of Tess' life, highlighting the unfairness of her treatment. Society condemns her as an unclean woman because she was raped, while Angel's premarital affair is barely mentioned. Angel himself rejects Tess based on what her community and family will think if they discovered her past. In Tess' case, the arbitrary rules of society literally ruined her life. It was traditional at the time to see Tess as an impure woman, and even Angel couldn't forgive Tess for something she even hadn't done. For Angel, Tess' reputation was very important. Let's say that it represents the society of that time. As a part of this thing, we have to talk about marriage. Alec, Angel, and Tess all ponder whether Alec is her rightful husband. As the man who ended her purity, the only way to regain it to any degree is by a marriage to Alec. Thomas Hardy asks the reader to think about the fact that marriage is a social convention. It is a practice that was invented by people. It's something that we learn from society, not an idea that we are born with. He also makes us think about the difference between the social marriage and natural marriage, and the responsibilities and obligations that each kind of marriage have. So we can ask, who is the real or natural husband of Tess? For Angel, of course, Alec was the natural husband of Tess, because he was the first person who was with her.
My personal opinion of the book is that Thomas Hardy struggled with his own religious beliefs, and that struggle comes through in his work. He idealized the paganism of the past, but was also attached to his family's Christianity, and generally he accepted some sort of supernatural being that controlled fate. There is another side of Tess' divinity as well, and however, the role of sacrificial victim, which is a figure of associated with both paganism and Christianity. Like Jesus, Tess is punished for the sins of another, assuming the weight of guilt for Alex's crime. When the police finally come to arrest her for murder, she is lying asleep at Stonehenge, like a sacrifice on an altar. Stonehenge was thought at Thomas Hardy's time to be a heathen temple. It is an interesting story that talks about love for money. In this case, Tess had to double Bill's house to get the fortunes. Then she had to struggle a lot in order to survive. Also, the power that sometimes dreams have. Sometimes dreams can be sort of clairvoyant for the future, as the deja vus. And this book mingles tragedy and drama. Also, it mingles double standard, and it shows the aristocratic society of the Victorian era. Thomas Hardy had the power of clairvoyance because he portrayed Tess as if she were a woman of these times. The book is ambiented in the modernity time, in the 18th century. It is a really nurtured book, but without a doubt, this book is worth reading. Thank you.
That was all for us. Thank you for your attention.